When British settlers arrived in 1788, Australia was not empty. It was home to as many as 750,000 to over 1 million Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people, spread across 250 plus nations, each with its own laws, cultures, and languages. But within a century, the number collapsed. By 1900, the Aboriginal population had fallen to just under 100,000, a decline of 85 to 90%. That wasn't just due to disease or coincidence. It was the result of deliberate violence, dispossession, and government policy. Disease and first contact. Like in the Americas, disease played a devastating role. British colonizers brought smallpox, influenza, measles, and tuberculosis, to which Aboriginal people had no immunity. Within just 2 years of the first fleet's arrival in 1788, smallpox wiped out more than 50% of the indigenous population around Sydney. Some communities lost up to 90% of their people before settlers even physically arrived. But this wasn't the only cause, and arguably not even the worst. As settlers pushed inland, they stole land, water, and sacred sites, sparking fierce resistance from Aboriginal nations. The response: a campaign of massacre, forced removals, and terror, often with official support or indifference. Between 1788 and the 1930s, historians estimate at least 60,000 Aboriginal people were killed in documented massacres. The massacre map, compiled by the University of Newcastle, now records over 400 known massacre sites across the continent. The Black War, from the 1820s to 1832 in Tasmania, reduced the Palawa people from about 7,000 to fewer than 300. Many killings were not spontaneous, but planned, coordinated attacks by police, militias, and settlers, and most went unpunished. Poisoning and biological warfare. There is evidence that settlers deliberately poisoned food and water sources used by Aboriginal people. In New South Wales and in Queensland, there are dozens of accounts of settlers mixing arsenic with strychnine into flour, tea, and dam water. These killings were not only known, but rarely prosecuted. Such tactics functioned as biological warfare, slow, silent genocide, land theft, and forced starvation. The cornerstone of Aboriginal culture is country. Land is law, spirit, and survival. But under British doctrine, Australia was declared terra nullius, land belonging to no one. As settlers fenced off water, cleared forests, and introduced sheep and cattle, Aboriginal food sources were destroyed. This led to malnutrition, starvation, and displacement, especially in arid and desert regions. Many Aboriginal people were pushed into missions or reserves, where movement was restricted and rations were tightly controlled.
White people will never pay the black people back for what they done to us. Never.
What they did to you?
They done a lot of things wrong. They killed and shot our black people there, and they took the land off them. They took our culture off them. Now they're trying to take our pride, but no ways. They got no chance of getting that. There's too many pride been broken, hurted, many hearts been broken over what happened years ago in the older generation. And it's the young generation in days of today that stands up and fight for what happened to the old generation and old people.
Child removal and the stolen generations. From 1910 to 1970, the Australian government and churches forcibly removed tens of thousands of Aboriginal children from their families. These children became known as the stolen generations. The Bringing Them Home report estimates that 1 in 3 Aboriginal children were taken during this time. Many were raised in institutions or foster homes where they were abused, exploited, and taught to reject their heritage. This policy was a form of cultural genocide, aiming to eliminate Aboriginal identity itself. The population collapse in terms of the numbers. Let's look at the demographic collapse in raw numbers. In 1788, there were 750,000 to 1 million plus Aboriginal people. By 1900, there were only 93,000 Aboriginal people left. In 1961, there were 106,000 Aboriginal people. And in 2021, there were 984,000 Aboriginal people. That's 3.8% of Australia's population. That's a loss of hundreds of thousands of lives due to settler violence, disease, and policy. And while the population has rebounded in recent decades, thanks to resistance, survival, and cultural revival, the trauma is far from over. So was this genocide? According to the United Nations Genocide Convention, genocide includes killing members of a group, causing serious harm, deliberately inflicting conditions to destroy a group, forcibly transferring children. Australia meets all 4 criteria, yet to this day, no government has officially called it genocide. So what is the impact today? The legacy of this violence is still felt across Indigenous Australia. The life expectancy is 8 to 9 years lower than the non-Indigenous population. Incarceration rates are 13 times higher. Aboriginal children are still disproportionately removed by child protection services. And self-harm rates are twice the national average. These are not historical facts. These are ongoing outcomes of a colonial system that never ended. It just changed form. Australia wasn't settled. It was invaded. The original custodians of the land were nearly destroyed by design. The numbers speak for themselves. And unless this history is not only acknowledged but acted upon with land justice, reparations, and Indigenous sovereignty, the cycle will continue. Thank you for watching. If you found this informative, please like, share, and subscribe. Let's keep the conversation honest, because truth-telling is the first step to justice. Thank you for watching, and see you soon.